Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin this story, a tale of quiet endurance, hidden wealth, and the moment a man finally chooses himself, I ask you to support the channel. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new life story. Drop a like if you're ready for some sweet revenge, and comment below with the city or country you're listening from. I love knowing where this community reaches. And now, let's dive in. My name is Adam Zoe, and at 80 years old, I've spent most of my life fixing things. Clocks, watches, music boxes, anything with gears and springs that could be coaxed back into rhythm. I had a small shop downtown for 50 years, tucked between a bakery and a florist, the kind of place people only found if they were looking for something precise and old-fashioned. The bell over the door jingled softly every time someone came in, and I'd look up from my workbench, magnifying loupe over one eye, and greet them with the same calm nod. People thought I was just a humble repairman. My hands were always stained with oil, my clothes simple, khakis, flannel shirts, a worn leather apron. I drove the same faded blue pickup truck since 1987. I lived in a modest brick house on a quiet street, kept the lawn mowed, and never took fancy vacations. That's what everyone saw. That's what my daughter, Lauren, saw. Lauren is my only child. Her mother, Clara, passed when Lauren was 12, and after that, it was just the two of us. I raised her the best I could, packed her lunches, went to every school play, saved every extra penny for her college fund. She was bright, beautiful, ambitious. She moved to the city after graduation, became a social media influencer, the kind with sponsored posts and brand deals, and a wardrobe that cost more than my yearly earnings looked like on paper. She'd come home every few months, always in a rush, always with new stories about collaborations and events, and every time she'd need something. "Dad, my account got hacked. I need a little to tide me over." "Dad, this trip to Paris is a work opportunity. Can you help with the flight?" "Dad, my car needs repairs. You know how expensive the city is." I never said no. My pension from the shop wasn't much, and the veteran benefits helped, but I'd always find a way. I'd cash in a bond, dip into savings, skip a few meals. I told myself it was temporary, that she was building something big, and one day she'd be secure. One day she'd take care of me the way I'd taken care of her. But the requests grew larger. Soon it wasn't a few hundred, it was thousands. Then it was my entire monthly check. She'd call the day the direct deposit hit, voice sweet as honey. "Dad, I hate asking, but this launch is huge. I'll pay you back, I promise." And I'd transfer it, every time. 3 months ago, she called with excitement I hadn't heard since she was a little girl. "Dad, I'm going to Bali. 3 whole weeks. Content goldmine. Yoga retreats, beaches, villas. Brands are paying for most of it, but I need a little extra for spending money and upgrades. You know how it is." I was quiet for a moment. My account had exactly 1 month's worth of bills in it, but I heard the thrill in her voice, pictured her smiling at the ocean, and I said, "How much, sweetheart?" "10,000 should cover it. I'll Venmo you back as soon as the partnerships pay out." 10,000. That was nearly everything I had left after paying the property taxes. But I sent it. I told myself it was an investment in her future, our future. She kissed the phone goodbye and promised to send photos. "You'll love the sunsets, Dad. Maybe one day I'll bring you here." The house felt quieter after that. I ate canned soup for dinner, toast for breakfast. The fridge hummed emptily. I told myself it was only 3 weeks. But on the second week, something made me go into the spare room, Lauren's old room, though she hadn't slept there in years. I was looking for an old photo album to send her a picture of when she was small. Under the bed, in a box she must have left last visit, I found a thick folder. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside were printed emails, forms, brochures. One was from a realtor, subject line, "Valuation complete, quick sale possible." Another was a draft power of attorney, my name at the top, her name as agent. There were medical forms, a psychologist's referral for cognitive assessment, and worst of all, a colorful brochure for Veterans Haven, a state-run facility 2 hours away, the kind of place with shared rooms, institutional food, and a reputation no one wanted. There were notes in Lauren's handwriting on the margins. After Bali, schedule evaluation, sell house by fall, move assets before he notices. My hands shook so badly I had to sit on the bed. She wasn't waiting for me to pass naturally. She was planning to have me declared incompetent, to sell my home, Clara's and my home, while I was locked away in a place that smelled of bleach and despair, all so she could keep living her filtered, perfect life. I sat there for hours, the folder in my lap, the house silent around me. I wasn't angry at first. I was hollow, like someone had scooped out everything I'd believed about love and family and left just a shell. But then something shifted. A small, cold clarity settled in my chest. I'd spent my life fixing things, making broken mechanisms work again, restoring rhythm to chaos. It was time to fix something for myself. The next morning, I didn't make coffee. I didn't turn on the radio. I walked straight to the basement door, the one Lauren always joked was creepy and never opened. Behind that door was my workshop, not the little shop I'd run for customers, but my private space, the one Clara had helped me build before she got sick. Soundproofed walls, climate-controlled, locked with a keypad only I knew. I typed in the code, her birthday, and the lock clicked open. The lights flickered on, revealing rows of wooden cabinets, glass cases, and a long workbench. And there, in perfect order, was my collection. People thought I repaired clocks for a living. That was true, but what they didn't know was that over 60 years, I'd quietly bought the rarest, most exquisite pieces I could find. Not for show, not for status, but because each one was a masterpiece of engineering and art. I'd restored them, cared for them, loved them in a way I couldn't always love the messy, unpredictable world upstairs. There were bracket clocks from the 18th century, long-case grandfather clocks with moon phases and chimes, French carriage clocks in ormolu cases, Swiss atmospheric clocks that ran on temperature changes alone, pocket watches, Patek Philippe, Breguet, Vacheron Constantin, some with Torions, minute repeaters, perpetual calendars, and the crown jewels, a 1920s Cartier mystery clock with a diamond-studded rock crystal case where the hand seemed to float without mechanism, and a rare Atmos clock by Jaeger-LeCoultre, its glass dome gleaming like a captured star. I'd never told anyone the full extent. Not even Clara knew how valuable it had become. I'd bought low, restored meticulously, and held. Decades of patience. That morning, I opened my ledger, the real one, not the simple checkbook Lauren saw. The appraised value, updated just last year by a discreet auction house in Geneva, was staggering, well over 7 figures. Enough to live like a king for the rest of my days, enough to never need anyone again. I closed the ledger and looked around the room. These weren't just things, they were my life's work, my companions through lonely nights after Clara passed, my pride. But they were things, beautiful, priceless things, and I was hungry. Not just for food, for dignity, for warmth, for the feeling of mattering to myself. I made calls that day, quiet ones, to people in the industry who knew my name, even if the world didn't, to a private buyer in New York, to a collector in London, to an auctioneer specialist who'd been trying to acquire my Cartier mystery clock for years. By the end of the week, pieces began to move, carefully crated, insured, shipped. Money arrived in wired sums that my bank app froze for a second before displaying the new balance. I didn't spend it wildly at first. I was methodical, the way I'd always been with gears and springs. First, I hired a discreet cleaning crew. The house hadn't been truly deep cleaned in years. They came in, polished wood floors until they glowed,
washed windows until sunlight poured in like it had when Clara was alive. They dusted places Lauren never noticed, the crown molding, the built-in bookshelves. Then I called a locksmith. New deadbolts, new keypad on the front door, new keys that only I possessed. Next, a security company. Cameras inside and out, motion sensors, an alarm that texted my phone. I wasn't afraid. I was preparing. Then came the fun part. I'd never been to a high-end grocery store. Not really. I'd walked past them, seen the gleaming produce and imported cheeses through the windows, but never gone in. Too expensive, too indulgent. Now I walked into Le Marché on Piedmont like I belonged. The air smelled of fresh bread and flowers and something citrusy. Employees in crisp aprons greeted me.
White asparagus, fresh morel mushrooms, heirloom tomatoes in December because they were hothouse grown in Holland. Exotic fruit, rambutan, dragon fruit, finger limes that looked like caviar when you cut them open. Then the specialty aisles, Iranian saffron, vanilla beans from Madagascar, gold leaf honey, jars of beluga caviar, real beluga, not the cheap stuff, each tin costing what Lauren used to ask for just to get by. And champagne, not the grocery store kind, Dom Perignon Vintage, Krug, Cristal. I filled 3 carts. The cashier didn't blink, just scanned and packed carefully into insulated bags. The total made her pause for half a second before reading it aloud. I handed over my card without hesitation. Back home, I unpacked everything slowly. The refrigerator, an old Kenmore I'd meant to replace years ago, wasn't big enough, so I'd had a Sub-Zero delivered the day before. Double doors, glass front, temperature zones. I loaded it like a work of art. Top shelf, tins of caviar in neat rows, nestled in crushed ice packs. Next to them, bottles of Dom Perignon lying on their sides. Middle shelves, cheeses wrapped in parchment, cured meats in vacuum packs, the foie gras in its tureen. Bottom drawers, fresh produce in breathable bags, the oysters in their mesh sack, the live lobsters in a chilled container with seaweed. Door shelves, jars of truffles, black and white, Belgian chocolates handmade with gold dust, bottles of chilled Sancerre. The freezer got the wagyu, the crab legs, the morels. I stepped back and looked. The light inside glowed softly, illuminating abundance like a museum case. But this wasn't for display. This was for eating, for living. I made dinner that night the way I used to make special meals for Clara on anniversaries. I steamed 1 lobster, melted butter with garlic and lemon, cracked open oysters and ate them raw with just a drop of mignonette, toasted sourdough from the bakery section and spread it with foie gras. I ate at the dining table, the one we'd bought when Lauren was born, using the good china I'd saved for special occasions. There was only me, but it felt special. The lobster was sweet, tender. The oysters tasted like the ocean. The champagne, 1996 Dom, bubbled delicately, crisp and golden. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. The days passed like that. I woke when I wanted, made coffee with beans I ground fresh, read the paper on the porch, took walks around the neighborhood, and nodded at neighbors who now looked at me differently, maybe because I wore a new cashmere sweater, or because I smiled more. I sold another clock, a rare Breguet pocket watch with a ruby cylinder escapement. The money arrived, and I ordered more. White truffles from Alba, fresh uni from Hokkaido, a case of Chateau d'Yquem for dessert. The refrigerator grew fuller, if that was possible. I had to rearrange to fit new deliveries. It groaned under the weight of luxury. Lauren posted daily from Bali, photos of infinity pools, sunrise yoga, her in designer bikinis with captions about self-care and manifesting abundance. She tagged brands, smiled perfectly, lived the life my money, and now my collection, was funding. I watched sometimes, not with anger, with distance, like observing a stranger. 3 weeks became 4. She texted once, "Dad, the trip got extended. Amazing opportunity. Back in a few days. Miss you." I didn't reply. I had one more thing to do. I called an old friend, Thomas, a retired attorney who'd come into the shop years ago to have a family heirloom clock repaired. We'd stayed in touch. I invited him over for coffee. He arrived, looked around the transformed house, raised an eyebrow at the Sub-Zero glowing in the kitchen, but said nothing until we sat down. "Adam," he said after a sip, "you look good, different." "I feel different," I said, and I told him everything. Showed him the folder, the brochure, the draft power of attorney. His face grew serious. "This is elder abuse, plain and simple, financial exploitation, attempted coercion." "I don't want to press charges," I said. "Not yet. I just want to be protected." He nodded. We spent the afternoon drafting documents, a new will, leaving everything to a charitable foundation for veterans and a scholarship fund in Clara's name, no mention of Lauren. A revocable trust, updated power of attorney naming Thomas, medical directive, everything airtight. I paid him in cash from the sale of a small carriage clock. He tried to refuse, but I insisted. "You've earned it," I said, "for friendship." The day Lauren was due back, I prepared. I wore a new shirt, soft cotton, tailored, new shoes. I'd even gotten a haircut. I made no special dinner, just a simple sandwich for myself, Wagyu roast beef on fresh baguette with horseradish and arugula. Ate it slowly. The flight landed at 2:25 p.m. I knew that because I'd looked it up. At 4:47 p.m., keys rattled in the lock. The door opened. "Dad, I'm home." Her voice was bright, sing-song, the way it always was when she expected gratitude. I heard the suitcase wheels on the hard wood, the thud of her purse hitting the entry table. She walked into the kitchen and stopped. The first thing she noticed was the smell, not of canned soup or empty fridge, but of fresh bread, citrus, truffles, wealth. Then she saw the refrigerator. The glass doors revealed everything in perfect chilled order, the caviar tins gleaming, the bottles of Dom Perignon like soldiers, the lobster container, the gold-wrapped chocolates. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. She looked at me, really looked, for the first time in years. I was sitting at the kitchen table, calm, sipping coffee from a porcelain cup. "Welcome home, Lauren," I said quietly. She found her voice. It came out high, sharp. "Dad, what? How? Where did you get all this?" She stepped forward, her hand reaching toward the fridge handle like it might be a mirage. I didn't stop her. She opened it. The cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of luxury and plenty. She stared and stared. Then she screamed. Lauren's scream wasn't the dramatic horror movie kind. It was short, sharp, almost animal, like someone had punched her in the stomach and stolen her breath. The refrigerator door was still open, the soft interior light bathing her face in a golden glow that made her look suddenly older, the perfect Bali tan looking suddenly artificial under the kitchen LEDs. "Dad!" The word cracked in the middle. "What the hell is this?" I stayed seated, legs crossed, coffee cup balanced on my knee. I took a slow sip. The beans were single-origin Ethiopian, light roast, notes of blueberry and jasmine. It tasted like morning in a place I'd never been, but now could afford to visit. Lauren spun toward me, eyes wide, phone already half out of her designer crossbody, like she was going to film this for evidence. "Where did you get all this? Did you win the lottery or something? Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice climbed higher with every question, the influencer cadence slipping in, bright, performative, the tone she used when she was trying to make a relatable story out of something ugly. I set the cup down gently on its saucer. The porcelain was Limoges, thin enough to see light through.
I'd bought a full service for 12 the week before, just because I could. "I didn't win the lottery, Lauren," I said. My voice was steady, low, the same tone I used when explaining to a customer why their grandfather's watch would never run quite the same after being dropped. "I sold a few things." Her face shifted, confusion first, then calculation. She closed the refrigerator door, slowly, like it might disappear if she slammed it. "Sold what things? You don't have anything."
"Worth this." She gestured vaguely at the Sub-Zero, at the marble counter now holding a bowl of fresh white truffles under a glass cloche. I smiled, not warmly, just enough to show I wasn't shaken. "Actually, I do." I stood, walked past her to the hallway that led to the basement door. She followed instinctively, the way she used to when she was little and I'd call her down to show her how a balance wheel worked. But this time her heels clicked uncertainly on the hardwood. The keypad glowed softly. I entered Clara's birthday again, 08-14-62. The lock clicked. I opened the door and flicked on the lights. Lauren hesitated at the top of the stairs. "Dad, what are you doing? That creepy workshop." "Come down," I said. Not an invitation, a direction. She came. Halfway down the stairs, she stopped. Her breath caught audibly. The room was transformed. Where once there had been row upon row of priceless timepieces, now there were empty glass cases. Velvet-lined trays sat vacant. Only a handful of pieces remained, my personal favorites I couldn't bear to part with yet. The Cartier mystery clock still floated its diamond hands in mid-air. The Atmos breathed quietly on its pedestal. A single Patek Philippe perpetual calendar pocket watch lay on black silk, its moon phase perfectly aligned. The rest, gone. Lauren's mouth opened and closed. You sold them? All of them?" "Not all. Most." I walked to the long workbench and picked up the ledger, the real one. Thick leather, pages filled with my careful handwriting, acquisition dates, restoration notes, appraised values. I opened it to the last page and turned it toward her. Her eyes scanned the numbers. I watched the color drain from her face. 7 figures, then another sale, then another. The running total at the bottom was now well into 8. She looked up at me, stunned. "You were rich? This whole time?" "No," I corrected gently. "I was careful. There's a difference." She took a step back, bumped into a cabinet. "Why didn't you ever tell me? I could have." "You could have what?" I asked. "Lived even larger? Asked for more? Planned to put me away sooner?" The words landed like stones. Her face crumpled, not with remorse, not yet, with panic. She reached into her bag, pulled out the folder I'd found weeks ago. She must have come straight from the airport and gone to her old room first, looking for it. It was gone, of course. I'd burned it in the backyard fire pit the day after Thomas left. "Where is it?" she whispered. "Gone," I said, "like your plans." Her eyes filled with tears, real ones this time, or at least convincing. "Dad, you don't understand. I was scared. You're getting older. The house is too big for you. I just wanted you to be taken care of. While you sold everything and kept the money." I finished the sentence for her. "I read the notes, Lauren. Move assets before he notices." She flinched. I walked to the small safe built into the wall, the one she'd never known existed, and opened it. Inside were the new documents Thomas had prepared. I took out the will and the trust summary. "I've made other arrangements now," I said, handing them to her. "Everything goes to veterans' charities and a scholarship in your mother's name. You get nothing." She stared at the papers like they were written another language. "You can't do this," she said, voice shaking. "I'm your only child. There are laws." "There are," I agreed, "and Thomas is very good at following them. You'll get a copy in the mail, certified. Contest it if you like. It'll cost you more in legal fees than you'll ever recover." She dropped the papers on the workbench. They fluttered like wounded birds. Then the anger came, the real Lauren. "You selfish old man, I gave up everything to build something, and you just hoarded junk in the basement like some miser. You could have helped me sooner, really helped, and instead you let me struggle." "You never struggled," I said quietly. "You flew first class to Bali on my dime. You ate Michelin-starred restaurants while I ate canned beans. You posted about manifesting abundance while draining my checking account the day the pension hit." She had no answer for that, just fury. She stormed up the stairs. I followed slowly. In the kitchen, she grabbed her suitcase. "Fine, keep your stupid money. I don't need it. I have sponsors, deals." "You have debt," I said. I'd checked, quietly, through a private investigator Thomas recommended. Credit cards maxed out, a leased Mercedes she was 3 payments behind, rent on a downtown loft she couldn't quite afford. Over $120,000 worth, last I heard. Her hand froze on the suitcase handle. "How?" "I'm old. I'm not stupid." She turned back to me, eyes pleading now. The switch was instant, professional. "Daddy, please, we can fix this. I was wrong, okay? I was scared and stupid and I made a mistake. Let me stay. We'll figure it out together. I'll help you spend it properly. We'll travel. You deserve nice things too." I almost laughed, almost. Instead, I walked to the front door and opened it. The late afternoon light slanted in, golden and cold. "Goodbye, Lauren." She stared at me for a long moment. Then something in her face hardened. The mask dropped completely. "You'll regret this. When you're alone and old and dying, you'll wish you had family." "I've been alone for years. I just didn't admit it." She dragged her suitcase out. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. I stood there for a minute, listening to the wheels rumble down the porch steps, the slam of her car door, the engine revving too hard as she peeled away. Then I locked the door, set the alarm, poured myself another glass of champagne. The house was quiet again, but this time the quiet felt earned. The weeks that followed were the freest of my life. I sold the rest of the collection slowly, deliberately. Each piece went to someone who would cherish it the way I had. The money piled up, quietly, safely, in accounts Lauren would never find. I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't need one. I kept the brick house on the quiet street, the one Clara and I had chosen together, where Lauren had taken her first steps. But I renovated it gently. New kitchen with a La Cornue range in Provence blue. A wine cellar built into the basement where the empty clock cases now stood. Heated floors in the bathroom. A library with leather-bound books I'd always wanted to read. I traveled, not exaggeratedly at first. A week in Kyoto during cherry blossom season, staying in a ryokan with meals served on lacquer trays. Then Paris, walking the Seine at dawn, eating croissants still warm from the boulangerie. I sat in small cafes and watched the world go by, no longer rushing to fix anything. I made friends, real ones. Thomas and his wife invited me to dinner regularly. I joined a small group of veterans who met for coffee on Wednesdays. I even took a watchmaking masterclass in Geneva, just for the joy of it, not because I needed the skill anymore. One evening in late spring, I was in Tuscany. I'd rented a small villa outside Florence for a month. Olive trees silver in the breeze, cypress pointing to a sky so blue it hurt. I'd hired a private chef for the night, a young woman from Siena who cooked over an open fire. We ate on the terrace, bistecca alla fiorentina, rare and charred, with rosemary potatoes and a bottle of 1982 Sassicaia I'd been saving. The stars came out one by one. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was Lauren. I almost didn't open it, but I did.
"Dad, I'm sorry. Things fell apart. The sponsors dropped me. I lost the apartment. I'm staying with friends, but it's temporary. I don't know what to do. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, "I'm glad you're safe. Take care of yourself." And I turned the phone off. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. The boundary was inside me now, solid as the stone walls of the villa. The chef brought out dessert, panna cotta with wild strawberries. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. At 80 years old, I finally understood something I'd spent a lifetime repairing, but never quite grasping. Some things can't be fixed by giving more parts away. Some rhythms only return when you stop letting others wind you down. I raised my glass to the stars, to Clara wherever she was watching, to the boy I'd been, fixing his first broken watch under a desk lamp, to the man I was becoming, one deliberate tick at a time. The night was warm, the wine was perfect, the quiet was mine. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for anyone to come home. I was already there.